Greetings to members of the Greater Seattle Choral Consortium. I'm David Horiuchi, past president of the GSCC board. I'd like to welcome you today to the second of our two sessions with Sara Langworthy of DeveloPlay LLC and Adam Reinwald of Open Voices LLC. This session is how to use video now. And as most of us know, when the pandemic hit, we all had to figure out new ways to perform and connect to our audiences. And video was a great way to do that. And now that we're mostly back to rehearsing and performing live in some capacity, now can we still use those video tools and knowledge that we gained to still reach out to our audiences today? And Sara and Adam will talk about that today. Reminder, please drop your name and organization in the chat so we know who you are. With that, I'll pass it to Sara and Adam.
Hello, hello. Thanks to David for that great introduction. I'm Sara Langworthy. This is my colleague on one side of the screen, Adam Reinwald. We are excited to be here today and talking all about video. I am especially nerdy when it comes to video, so I will try not to go down too many rabbit holes. Adam, you might have to keep me in line today. We'll see. But we're excited to share about this great topic today. So Adam, I'm going to let you take it away for the first part here.
Sounds fantastic. And we're excited to work with you today just to talk a little tiny bit about how video can be used for your ensembles. We're going to take two different paths, really. I'm going to put on my artistic director / managing director hat. Today I work, I am the artistic and managing director of an organization called Choral, Minnesota here in the Twin Cities, as well as run a few other organizations around. And so I think about video from an artistic director / executive director perspective. And I'll be providing a little bit of the why on those things. And then Sara, as video creator and videographer extraordinaire, will be thinking a little bit about the how video works for everything. But just to remind you who we are, Sara, with her wonderful PhD, is the owner and operator of DeveloPlay LLC, and I'm a choral conductor and an engagement consultant here with Open Voices LLC. We've got a lot to kind of get forward to, so let's head right to it. And we're asking you first, how are you feeling about your organization's use of video right now? This is your chance to type into the chat. Number one, it could use some help. Concerned emoji face. Number two, so we're doing okay. You know, we understand what video can be used for. Or three, we are absolutely killing it. Giant smiley emoji face. That's what we would like to know. Let us know in chat. I know that when I started kind of working with Sara about 6-7 years ago, I had very little idea about what video could do and how it could be useful for a core organization other than just to, pop on social media occasionally. So we're seeing a lot of twos and twos. Good. Doing pretty well. Okay, so Patty would like to get a little bit extra help. That's great. We're still seeing some twos. That works just fine. That works all the way through. I agree that it's a bit of a lot to talk about all the way through, but it is really important to think about what we can do here. So anytime you have questions, make sure you toss them our way, pop them in the chat. I think we're a slightly smaller group today than we were last time, but that's great. That allows us all to have a chance to have a little bit more discussion. So if anything pops in, don't hesitate to drop a question in the chat and we can get right to it. But first, our plan for today, like I mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about the why video and a little tiny bit about then how we can analyze and how we can start to create different patterns and some priorities for video. And then Sara's going to do a little deep dive on some analytics and making sure that people understand best practices as it relates to things like YouTube and Facebook native video and things like that. So that's what we're taking a look at. So
Adam, I just want to say the reason I called it awesome analytics and boppin' best practices was so that I could hear you say the word boppin', and you didn't even do it.
All right, I will say it. Our plan for today includes awesome analytics and boppin' best practices. Okay.
we like having fun.
Here we go. I should have known that you put it in there, so I apologize.
Yeah.
So a question, how has your organization used video in the past? We had a chance to work with a number of organizations, in particular Wellspring, that I got to kind of do the deep dive on. And Wellspring had really had quite a lot of success in creating choir videos during COVID time that had virtual videos all the way around that everybody was doing. They excelled in that area. And so it's nice to know that was possible. Other organizations that we've worked with really have standout content in the live streaming area. And so we've seen some success in that way. But let us know in the chat, how have you used video in the past? That would be kind of one of the things that I'm interested in taking a look at today. Yes, there's a number of 2.5 responses. So people are thinking, oh, I did pretty well. Exactly. So Maggie says we've got some virtual marketing, some ideas, small clips for social media. Exactly right. That's wonderful. That works perfectly. Multiple virtual choirs, including some music video style. That's excellent. Good to know. That certainly works. As from our perspective, there's quite a number of reasons why you would want to continue to do this, to use video now. Like David says, some YouTube kind of contributions all the way through. Virtual things from Tyler. It does feel complicated, yes. And I think that we may even be past the virtual choir kind of need, which is good. Ensign, yes, an amazing videographer, makes promotional videos fantastic. That's great. Yeah, but not a lot of videos of just your actual art. That's interesting. Stephanie records rehearsals, creates short videos to promote youth choir. Good on the website. Stand-up performances, a Christmas card. Yep, that works nicely. Some virtual concerts with past live performances and virtual choir stuff. That's great. Good to hear it. That's really all the things are working there. But when we're talking about video, here's what we mean. We talk about a number of things, but in particular, concert-like experiences. Okay, that could be your live streaming. That could be individual song cuts, things like that. We're talking about behind the scenes and extra content. So this might be a way to entice a deeper level of donor that we'll kind of get into as we go along. But that bit of behind the scenes and extra content is kind of how the internet works right now. It's all about finding the little the nuggets and interesting parts of something to dive into. There's also promotional and fundraising videos. That's great. We need to come up with those, and whether those are played on the internet or they're just played at an actual fundraising event, both can be extremely useful. And then bite-sized marketing videos. Those things that really kind of are keeping us going in a lot of ways, and that's very helpful. So the whys of why to use video now, from my artistic and managing director idea, I like to think about making sure that you tell your story. We talked last time that your website and your online presence needs to be a better storytelling mechanism, and video is kind of right at the top of that. So why video in a choral perspective right now? It absolutely helps to tell your story on a much more consistent level. When we're talking about telling your story, all of a sudden, it's significantly more engaging than just pictures and text on a website. There's all sorts of things like multi-platform sharing with video, and it takes the place of images and text to tell a more vibrant story. So after watching a product video, consumers are 85% more likely to buy it. Friend Neil Patel says that's really quite an interesting statistic. All of a sudden, we dip into the place where when people have a chance to interact with video, it makes things come alive for them. Directly on a website, generates 3 times as much monthly visitors to website as other content. And the one that I think is the real key here is visitors spend 88% more time on a website that includes video than not. And I think that lets them become more familiar with your ensemble and leads to them buying more tickets, donating more money, because they're already there with all of those things. So I think that's, that telling your story is a really crucial capacity to why we want to add video and continue to use it. Going forward, not only does it tell your story, but it broadens your audience. That is really important to bring us from just a regional ensemble into something, or a local ensemble, but into something that might be a regional, national, perhaps even international ensemble. You meet the audience oftentimes where they are or where they are not. It's a great way to make sure that your audience can appreciate your art, even if they're not sitting in your concert hall at that exact moment. So you kind of begin to see how organizations can use video to find audiences specifically and more directly meet the audiences that they already have there. And I also mentioned, moving from a regional organization to a national organization. The reason for that is it increases potential donors. We've got a number of stories about why that's so effective and why that is so useful in a lot of ways. Live streaming allows folks to attend from their home. Fans who identify with your work and music are really quite all over the world. You just need to kind of get in front of them. Video helps that in a very distinct way. And then I also have creates a transparent organizational culture. What I mean by that is when you choose to be, how transparent you choose to be, you can really begin to make inroads with the public and your organization, your work. So I've got a number of anecdotes about clients who have video recorded board meetings and then posted those on their website. And those board meetings, seeing the actual decision making from an arts organization to the public, brought in new donors for them because they felt that they knew exactly what their money was being spent on because it was being discussed on video. And that was a really interesting thing to learn about all the way through. So that's, I think, broadening your audience is 100% a why we want to continue using video. Any questions pop up from some of those things? Talking about telling your story and broadening your audience seems relatively pretty understood. Don't see a ton of stuff.
No, I didn't see any questions. I am curious to ask folks to let us know in chat as we move forward here. How many of you feel like the broadening your audience is kind of the major the pain point is maybe not the exact word, but the major reason why you might want to continue video, especially in a post-COVID kind of place where we are now. I have a number of clients who are like, we built this audience and now what do we do with it? So I'm curious if others are kind of facing that tension as well. So please let us know in chat if that is compelling to you or whether you're like, no, I don't want to broaden my audience anymore. I'm going to guess nobody's going to say no to that, but who knows? Yes. Okay. Absolutely. There's a hand raise. All right. Yes. Getting our course out in front of new eyeballs. Indeed. Okay. Great. I'm glad to hear that resonates with you all as well, because that is kind of a primary goal of what we're talking about throughout the day here.
And the research backs that up, right? All of the market research tells us that when we add video to our website, for example, it keeps people there and it keeps them on your page and on you on the top of their mind. And then when you launch into things like live streaming or sharing videos around, the chance to broaden that audience is just absolutely crucial and right there. So, yep. And as David says, there are many members from elsewhere in the U.S. and beyond. And I think that we saw that, especially talking with Ensign, about how a lot of their members had moved away, but had been able to stay involved with different live streaming efforts and different video efforts. That's fantastic. So, third why, sorry about that. Third why here, taking a look, from an artistic perspective, it can focus your programming. And what I mean by that is, all of a sudden, you've got a chance to enhance your music with visuals or images. So instead of just the idea of choir on risers, you can now branch into some things that might include some live concert video, or translate what you've recorded already in an audio capacity into a better, more interesting storytelling component on a video online that might just live on your YouTube channel as one single video. It can enhance and broaden the artistic perspective. But now you also have a chance, it's an accessibility issue, right? So now you might be able to put super titles above pieces that you otherwise wouldn't have a chance to share that text. So it creates new facets to accessibility, which I think is a very interesting idea when you take a look at why why some conductors or artistic directors would choose to program certain elements of their work. And on top of that, even more now, composers are working with video in a very unique way. So friends of mine, Jocelyn Hagan and Timothy DeCash, both have two fantastic kind of newish pieces. The Notebooks of Leonardo da Vinci from Jocelyn. It's the entire thing is built to have live video moving with it. In a concert performance. And similarly, Tim was able to put, with Helios, he built his own a set of video components along with those pieces. And now choirs can not only rent the score or hire the score out, but you can also hire the video to go with it. And I hope this will play here. We're going to just trial this a little bit, but I wanted to show something about the live performance that is able to be happening with the artistic concerns from The Crossing. This is a video from their Aniara concert, and it really is the entire stage area turns into a essentially a video canvas. And I'll see if I can play a little bit. Let's go around and touch. Volume down a little bit. But this area right here turns into a video canvas. I'm going to skip around. Of course, I'm not showing any of the parts that are doing that. So you're starting to add simple light overs all the way through, and then it turns into something like this, where the live concert experience is shifted by the video in performance. Go ahead again. All of a sudden, that leaves the concert hall, and becomes something much more palatable and much more interesting for a lot of people. Text becomes clearer. All of a sudden, things happen in a way that is illuminated, I will say. And I think that's, for me, the other part of why I really enjoy video in this capacity. So, so there's that. And then lastly, I mentioned that, yes, we have an opportunity to generate revenue with video. It's not going to necessarily be something that you can do tomorrow, but Sara will talk a little bit about a way that you can get that going relatively soon when we talk about generating revenue. Or it's something to build for long term. And there's a lot of things that can happen in that pathway to building for long-term growth, long-term video usage and revenue that really work so interestingly to develop your programming, to develop your audience, maybe teach them about how to engage more online. And then it might shift some of your priority setting. And it really is all about growth, growth, growth. So Sara will talk a little bit about the virtual subscription idea and model that might bring in some revenue sooner than later. And then there's, of course, taking a look at platform monetization, whether that's on YouTube or something else, that takes a number of years to build to that thing. But, revenue through video work is starting to be very valuable for a lot of organizations. And it really does kind of move into a way that might be something that everybody should be thinking about in the future. So the last bit here, pro tip, boost your revenue by including a virtual component or a hybrid virtual component out a fundraising campaign coming up soon. If you keep your donors just in one room, only those donors can donate to you. So if you broaden that room to include all of the internet and maybe hit specific places that you would really like to focus on, that is a great way to boost and double your virtual campaign. The one story I've got about that, just talking about some of these things, it does take a little while to build your video library and subscriber base to be monetizing on a different platform. But the way that shifts an organization is truly unique and interesting. And as I used to work with Contus a number of years ago, and the main fundraiser for that organization was called Contus Idol. And it started out as an in-house activity, and we would get 400 people in a room for a fundraising activity, and that was wonderful. But then they made the decision to move that into a hybrid virtual component. And in that first year of going just online, not even doing anything in person in Minneapolis, the Twin Cities, they doubled their revenue. just by increasing their the people who attended the virtual event online went from 300 to about 4,000. So they doubled revenue. And then they said, let's do in-person and a hybrid virtual component. And they were able to triple revenue. And that was before COVID happened. So all of a sudden they were able to find ways to make revenue work for them in a fundraising capacity by using video to make a much more compelling story for a larger group of people. So that's kind of what I'm taking a look at as I'm thinking about, from an artistic director, managing director perspective, why you would want to use video. That's really what is hitting me right in there. And then we've got a couple questions that are kind of popping in here. I'm sure Sarah's put a few of these on the screen, but increased accessibility. Yes, absolutely. I agree with that completely. Great for member recruiting. It is wonderful to know, what you're getting into before you sign up for a choir like that. I think it has a lot to do with that idea of transparency, as I mentioned earlier. It shows you the inner workings of an ensemble, and I think right now, younger folks, I'm going to say, in their 20s and younger, want to see transparent, earnest organizations and what they stand for. And when you put your board meetings, recorded board meetings online, people have a great opportunity to see exactly what kind of organization you're running. And I think that really speaks to youth donors in a different way, and singing members as well. So are there any questions I might get kind of before we jump into other components about that?
We're getting a lot of questions about copyright. I just want to say we made it to 20 minutes in before we got the copyright question, which is great. That is, I'm seeing a lot of people being like, that's the biggest roadblock, the thing that we run into the most. And of course, right, copyright is kind of the biggest, because it's still a little bit everybody's doing whatever they want to do kind of situation. I know that a lot of different choral music publishers, some of them have very specific rules around whether or not you can archive and whether or not you're just live streaming, and what the pay for each of those situations is. I know for those of you who have orchestras that you're working with, often you have union considerations to weigh in as well. In terms of copyright, some publishers will be like, yeah, great, put it up there for free, it helps sell our music. And others are like, no, it's gonna cost you $2,000 to put this song online. So I know that there's a lot of kind of different reactions to that in the copyright world with all of these music publishers. My hope is that some of that gets kind of worked out here, because I think publishers recognize that it's a valuable opportunity for some marketing for their pieces of music. And on the other hand, if they put the prices too high, people are going to stop doing it. So, I feel like we're kind of in some adjustment periods with some of those things. The other thing I would say about that is there are ways to work around copyright. I'm not suggesting illegal action. But there are ways to kind of work within that. And what I mean is, maybe instead of live streaming your entire performance of a very copyrighted work, you either pick one movement out of it, or you decide, we're going to work with a new composer, and our new composer series is going to be what's we negotiate with the composer and with the publisher ahead of time and say, hey, we're going to be the ones who put this out, so you're not going to ding us for copyright. Those kinds of creative ways around it. The other thing is public domain. So anything that's public domain is kind of fair game as well, or parody for any groups out there that do any parody work. So those things are all okay. From an
artistic perspective, I think it really does. It informs some of your programming choices, and it can be something that you changes your entire programming philosophy to make sure that this is a value for our organization to continue using video. Then the artistic person is in charge of finding out how to do that cost effectively and still have a wonderful product. And I see it as a real benefit from my chair about how that is how that comes online and how you kind of move around the rights and accessibility issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of great commentary in the chat happening here. and really around this idea of copyright. Are we hitting roadblocks? It sounds like a lot of you haven't hit issues with that, even on YouTube. And I'll talk a little bit more about this when we get to the YouTube portion as well. But the thing to know is that I very, very, very rarely see a situation where YouTube issues a copyright strike or pulls down your content as a result of copyright violation. In most cases, what publishers are doing are just claiming any monetization, any ad revenue that is coming from your video of their piece. They're saying, actually, that's ours, so we're going to take that money. And so that's how, in a place like YouTube, that kind of thing works out. Now, if you're doing a lot of pop music, I would avoid, because the pop music and rap, hip hop, the more established music industry is much more robust and much more intense about their exerting their copyright. So just keep that in mind as well. Yep. As you're thinking about copyright. All right. Well, I want to keep moving here so that we make sure that we have time to get to everything we wanted to cover today. So thank you, Adam, for kind of laying out why video might even be something worth considering. It sounds like the people here are already bought in, which is great. I love to see that. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about some different opportunities for video. Many of you have talked about quite a few of these already, but I want to give some different examples of what this can look like. So the first thing I want to talk a little bit about is concert-like experiences. So that might include live streaming. It might also include individual music videos. It might include a different kind of mini concert experience. Any of those sorts of things. The second one I'm going to talk about a little bit is the behind the scenes kinds of videos, and a couple different examples of what that looks like. Promotional and fundraising.
We're just having a hard time. All of a sudden, your shared screen is not popping up on the screen.
Okay, that is just fine. I will talk until apparently my internet is being crappy again. I've been having this issue all day. I cannot explain it because my internet seems fine, but here we go. So until that comes back, I'll just kind of talk through some of these things. So the last kind of category I wanted to touch on is live virtual events as well. So what I wanted to do is kind of give you all some examples of what this looks like. So we'll see if my internet cooperates. I'm not getting my alert anymore, so we'll try. We'll see how this goes. So I wanted to show you some examples of some work that I have done for some different clients. And Adam, if you want to drive here, that's just fine. And there's a couple of different examples here. If you click ahead, yep, great, perfect. So what you're seeing on the screen is just kind of a compilation of a few different videos that I've produced for different clients to kind of show a couple of different varieties of video. So there are things like what you're seeing right now, which are really like like music video kinds of experiences. Adam, why don't you jump ahead a little bit there too, so I can talk through the next one, since it's appears to be kind of jumping a little bit. One of the things that I found that it's really nice to be able to pull from stock video and as well as stock imagery, stock photos to tell a story. When I am approaching a piece of music as a video producer, I'm always thinking about what story is this piece trying to tell and how can I convey that visually. One of the things I would say when we think about live streaming, especially, right, it's the concert experience, but in virtual form. And I would love to kind of push people on that a little bit, because I think that the in-person concert experience is a very specific type of experience that we all know and we all love. But I think that sometimes that doesn't translate very well into online spaces and into video in particular. And so I like to get really creative in thinking about what kind of story are we telling with this program? What kind of story are we wanting to really underscore the main points of what's happening in the music, thematically across all of these different pieces or within each piece, and think really carefully about what visuals we want to accompany that. So you're seeing a few different examples of things. Some of these are from live filmed concerts. And then some are from recording sessions. So, some of it is very probably familiar to a lot of you, getting some nice close-up shots on singers. It adds sort of that vibrancy and movement while you're hearing the piece. But then for others, I like taking some of that footage and overlaying it or playing with other visuals as well from a more sort of storytelling perspective. And so I always like to encourage people to think a little bit outside the box and think about what lends itself well to the virtual space. And that is visuals, right? Like, we don't watch videos that are boring, most of us. And so what is it that's interesting? What compels your viewer to watch? And what's going to keep them attuned to what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish. I think when you're thinking about concert-like experiences, you always want to be considering your why. Why are you doing this? So if you think a live stream program is the best way to captivate and reach somebody who is not in the room with you, then that's great. If you question whether or not that's the best way, then what might be instead? Because it also allows you to kind of focus your resources a little bit too. We've talked a little bit already about the costs of copyright and those sorts of things. And so if you say, you know what, we don't have the money to live stream a full performance, but what if we put together a mini concert that's like 4 pieces, that we've really thought about, that are either from our archive or that are, things that we've recorded in rehearsal and have a good recording of, that then we could set some different visuals and things to it. What's kind of a short concert experience that we could provide that is special and unique and different compared to what you see when you come into a concert hall, right? So making it an entirely different experience also combats a little bit what I saw in chat, which is some people are concerned about, well, if we live stream it, are people going to show up to the concert? And so that's a valid concern. I haven't seen that bear out in most groups that I've worked with. It's really rare that you see a huge decline. And in fact, sometimes what happens, especially if you live stream the first of a couple of performances, is the people will watch it online and then they'll say, wow, I really need to go hear that in person. That was amazing. And then they'll, buy tickets for the next night. But I think if you're concerned about that, concerned about live streaming pulling away your in-person audience, then provide something that's not live streaming. Provide something unique, something that is, new and interesting that you haven't done before, but also that doesn't require a ton of extra work. And it sounds like a lot of the groups here today already have some skills when it comes to putting together different kinds of videos. The great thing about not having to do virtual choirs anymore is that, we don't have to do that part of it, but we can take audio and similar kind of visual stuff that we may have done and make some really interesting stories and interesting mini concerts and that sort of thing. So next I've got behind the scenes videos here. So these could be DIY or really highly produced. I'm also going to touch on the virtual subscriber model in a minute, but the footage that you're seeing right now is footage I gathered for the National Lutheran Choir. It's the choir that I happen to sing in here in the Twin Cities. And this is from a video that I put together for them a few years ago. And I wanted to show it because it's a lot of behind the scenes footage. So it's a lot of like after concert shots, people, audience talking to the directors. We've got some of our concert footage in here, but a lot of it is just people talking and being energetic and happy to be together. And this kind of footage really conveys an energy and an excitement about your organization. And it's literally, I took a camera on tour with us and I got a lot of really great stuff of people just chatting and having great conversation. The other type of behind the scenes that you can do is, we're all very familiar with Zoom meetings these days, but that sort of behind the scenes, maybe you're interviewing 1 or 2 people, having some in-depth conversation with folks, really diving deep on a topic that your audience really cares about. The thing about behind the scenes stuff that I love is that you can get kind of both the character and the personality of an organization, and you can also get really deep into the stuff that people love, right? If there's like a niche that you have, a type of music, and maybe you've got a local expert that you could interview, or a not local expert that you could interview, and provide that really in-depth information. Do you need to get some sort of signed release? Yes. So In general, I think most choirs, you have to sign a release for photography if you're going to take photos of them. Often you can include video in that. So I would say look into what the best practices are exactly on the wording for how to include likeness, including in photography and in video. But yes, I would recommend that you get clearances from all of your people on that. Audience members is a little less clear, but often what will happen is at a concert that's being broadcast or recorded, there will be a little sign on the ticket or like on the door or on the ticket booth that just says, we're recording tonight's performance, by entering, you're agreeing for your likeness to be used in this way. Yes, Wellspring adds it to the contract for each season. Exactly. So making sure you get that from your singers ahead of time is a great way to do that. Next, I'd love to chat a little bit about the virtual subscriber idea. So this also comes from the National Lutheran Choir, where for the last several years, they have been really growing their online presence. Even before the pandemic, they were doing some really interesting things in the online space. And because they kind of had that growth that was already happening when the pandemic hit, they were able to pretty quickly institute this virtual subscription model. So for them, the value was, we want our full concert programs or our virtual programs, we want those available to anybody for free. So anybody can view those on our website, on the YouTube channel. And there's a lot of time and energy and dollars that go into producing those. But the idea is that if you provide a really great artistic content, that then people would be interested in wanting to know more. So the virtual subscription is really an opportunity for those who are deep lovers of the organization to go deeper, to find out more about various parts of the organization. So a couple example posts here. The National Lutheran Choir has a lot of work on hymnody and different kinds of hymns. And so the director would do a little deep dive on different kinds of hymns, which people found really interesting. As you see, there's a behind the scenes choir retreat. So a little bit of some behind the scenes footage from our retreat and what that looked like and getting people excited for the season. So there are things that they have decided to kind of put behind a paywall that are special and fancy, but that paywall I think is $30 for the whole year, for the whole season. It's not very much, but they've had huge growth in that virtual subscription base. And that's been really successful for them. So you might think about, it's maybe not right now, but as you build your video presence for the future, you might consider something like that, where you have a certain number of videos that you can plan out for the season, and you say, you know what, we're going to make these the special fancy ones that we want our people to pay for as a part of their commitment to us as an organization. One of the things here, especially with the do-it-yourself videos, is consider how you can outsource. So there are probably a lot of people who are very comfortable with video in your choruses, in your communities of your choirs, who might be willing to just kind of, take some footage while you guys are rehearsing one evening or something, right? You can kind of ask people who who might be good at that sort of thing, or who might be interested in that sort of thing, to help you in those ways. That's how I got started with the National Lutheran Choir initially many years ago. I was like, hey, I want to do this. Like, this seems great. And they were like, okay, sure. And so that, one thing led to many, many others. But, I think it's worth considering what skill sets do you have in your singers and in your board and in your organization already that can really capitalize on expanding your video presence. David asks, is there an expectation of a regularly scheduled content when you have subscribers? Yes. So there is additional work associated with this, but I think if you think about it strategically ahead of time and you plan out and you say, maybe it's once a month or once every 2 months, and then you can figure out, okay, what should we be charging for that amount of content that we are able to produce? So think of it like a social media content calendar, your email marketing calendars. It can slot into there, right? So that same kind of structure where okay, on the 15th of every month, we're sending virtual subscriber content. We better know what we're sending. So yes, I would say that especially if you're going to ask people to pay for it, you better make sure that you're getting it out consistently as you promised. Okay, I would love to jump to promotional and fundraising videos. So there are a few different options for that as well. And you're going to see on the screen here, hopefully, some different examples of videos I've produced previously that really focus on promotional and fundraising work. Really the focus of both promotional and fundraising videos is to help tell your organizational story and get people to buy what you're selling. And whether that's get them to buy tickets or get them to donate to your organization. So one of the things that I've found in working with clients on promotional and fundraising videos is really a need to emphasize that story and think really deeply about what that story is and what we're trying to tell and why. And so that often requires a lot more work, I think, than people initially think. They're like, oh, it's a short 2-minute video, but you got to have the messaging exactly right. And so sometimes those videos are actually a little bit harder, but they can have a huge return on investment. So highly recommend thinking about those as something, especially for your galas, your in-person events that way, as well as for an online fundraising component. So for example, if you decide that you want to have a week where it's just like your choir palooza and you want to really focus on getting people engaged and getting people giving, then a video or two can provide a really great kind of touch point where you're articulating your values, your story, and what you hope that people get from that. So some of what you're seeing on the screen, is interviews with audience members. It's close up of your singers. Mm-hmm. It's some behind the scenes footage. It's a bunch of that kind of stuff to really help tell a visual story while you're driving home the point of, you want to support us, give us your money. So that's kind of all I want to address there. So moving forward a little bit, I think the main thing to think about there is that really storytelling is your friend when it comes to these kinds of videos specifically. So really thinking about storytelling as your primary driver when you're thinking about a promotional video or a fundraising video. And again, many of you, I think, have already done these kinds of things. And so that is great as well. And then moving forward to live virtual events. So one of the things that we did a lot in the pandemic was a lot of live events that were a lot of live events that were virtual events, but we had people jumping on from all over the place. And I think, one of the things here, Adam, I'm going to remove your thing. I'm going to try mine again. We're going to see. We're going to see if it's any better. I know we're having some internet issues. I was going to just talk all about StreamYard and how awesome it is, but apparently it's not so awesome today. Okay, let me pop forward here. So, all right, so the videos for live virtual events, this obviously had a huge rise during the pandemic, but it's a great opportunity to bring on people you wouldn't be able to otherwise, people from all over the country, and just a good opportunity to engage with folks who are outside of your local community. You can do conversations, you can do deep dives, something really silly and light. Any of those kinds of things are kind of fair game there. All right, I'm going to pause for just a second because I see we have a question here about how long should videos be? Is there a maximum time where we lose the audience in storytelling or promotional videos? Yeah, this really depends, I would say. Some videos, I would say, you want to keep to like 30 seconds to a minute for like short promotional ones. I think for others, you might want to be more in the realm of 2 to 5 minutes. I wouldn't go any longer than 5 minutes for sort of an explainer video that's going to talk about what the choir's experience is, the value, the storytelling, that kind of thing. You want to be aware of people's attention spans on that. That said, I think for deep dive content, for some of these live virtual things I was just mentioning, I think for all of those, you can do considerably longer. We'll talk a little bit about watch time here when I get to YouTube metrics in just a second, but yeah, sometimes longer is better, but for those short things, I would say shorter is better, which is also harder. So just keep that in mind as well. So I think the main thing to keep in mind here is to let what interests your audience really drive your focus for kind of live virtual events. Who are they interested in hearing from? What topics do they want to hear discussed? Who do you have access to, or could you invite in to present or talk about or be a part of a fun event for things like that? So I'm going to pause for just a second. We're going to take a quick 2-minute dance break while we're transitioning some stuff on our end. I would love if there are any other questions. Adam, have you seen any other questions that have popped in?
No, I have not. No.
All right. Well, I will give people a breather for just a second while I get things moving over here. Got to switch my windows. Hopefully it'll work better now. Okay. All right. YouTube analytics shows where audience members stop watching on average. Yes, Sarah, we're going to get to that in just a second. Excellent segue. Well done. Well done. One of the other things I just wanted to mention is that we do have a couple of different things available for folks. So actually, I'm going to do this one more time. I wanted to just share that we do have a couple of freebies for all of you. Let me just get this back up on the screen. So for questions about how do I YouTube, I've actually prepared a little handout, and it's two-sided handout that is just some basics on quick steps to improve your YouTube channel. So it talks about titles and descriptions and things that I touched on a little bit last time. And the other thing I offer is a thing called the Video Your Way series. That's for all of you who are like, I am kind of new to making video, but I'd like to get better at it. It's a series that's really devoted towards teaching you to how to take a video from its original concept all the way to a completed video that you're really proud of. So if either of those things are interesting to you, they are on my website at developlayllc.com/videoyourway. Also, if you want to see any examples of the video types that I've talked about previously, you can also find those on my website as well. I tried to pull little snippets of things, but if you want to see what any of those look like in action, those are also available on my website as well. So just wanted to share that real quick. So I'm going to pull this off and I'm going to share some YouTube. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to bring up this YouTube page. So Adam was very generous and said yes when I asked, can I show everybody on this stream the back end of your organization's YouTube channel? So he's been very kind to allow us to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go through and talk about a few of the sort of key things that I think are most important to consider when we're talking about analytics. So one of the things about the YouTube analytics thing is that it can get really overwhelming, right? You log into this. This is the YouTube Studio. So once you're logged in as your account, it'll show up here as YouTube Studio. It'll pop you into this dashboard view where most of you are probably familiar with it. It's going to be in this content area where you upload all of your different videos. But in terms of analytics, if we go to analytics, I think there are a few things that are valuable pieces of information to kind of keep, be aware of. So one of the things that YouTube cares about most, like a lot of platforms do, is keeping eyeballs on their platform. So what it's really preferencing is whether if your video keeps people on their platform, or if somebody watches your video for a minute and then closes YouTube entirely, that's bad news for them. So you want to be thinking a little bit about, okay, what are the things that I can do to kind of help maintain that? And there's not a ton, but I do think being thoughtful about things like thumbnails can actually be really valuable because if somebody clicks on a thumbnail to play a certain video and then very quickly realizes like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. Titling, same thing. So being cautious about those things and being really thoughtful about how you are, conveying your information, I think is important to keep in mind. So in looking at the channel analytics here, if you're looking across your channel, there are a couple of things that are worth thinking about. So right now we're on the channel analytics page, the overview. You see it's by channel, so it's across all of the videos on your YouTube channel. You want to know a couple of key things. One is who your audience is, and the second is what your audience does. So to look into some of those kinds of things for who your audience is, one place you can go is to content here. And then it'll pop up some basics on views and impressions. One of the things that is helpful to know is kind of where they came from. So if you kind of scroll down, you can see this little table that says how viewers find your videos. So typically external is when you have pushed somebody to a video. So that can be anything like Facebook, it can be an email message, it can be from your website. And so most choirs that I work with, external is really strong. It's number one, if not number two, of their kind of viewership on YouTube. The second, in Consortium's case, is YouTube search. So this means that somebody goes to YouTube and searches something, and then YouTube recommends, based on their search terms, one of the videos on Consortium's channel. And 23% of the audience on the channel come because of that. Suggested videos. This is the other one I really want to highlight because suggested videos is kind of the key to unlocking the algorithm for YouTube in a lot of ways. Suggested videos is, for those of you familiar with YouTube, when you're watching a video, on the right-hand side, there's that like column of videos that's like, oh, because you watched this, you might like this. That's how we all go down those delightful YouTube rabbit holes. So suggested videos is often, or is including things like that. It's also including if it's suggested on somebody's homepage of YouTube, and how many people or what percentage of your audience are coming from suggested videos. If you can get to a place where YouTube is recommending your content to other people, it is doing a lot of work for you, which is really, really great. Definitely something that you want to kind of keep an eye on in terms of what, which ways your viewers are finding you. I would say there's not one that's better than the other, but it can be helpful when you're thinking about how are we going to diversify this a little bit. One of the other things that's important to know about who your audience is if you go to audience here, you can look at new versus returning viewers. So this is really interesting to kind of look through and say, okay, how many people are returning people who've come to my channel before but are interested in seeing my stuff again and came back to watch something, and how many are completely new people who have discovered your channel for the first time in this selected period. That can be really interesting information along with the watch time from subscribers. So one of the things that's interesting about YouTube is that they come from sort of a subscription-based model where you subscribe to different channels, and then that's kind of how you build an audience. I have always found in sort of the choral world that the majority of viewership actually comes from non-subscriptions, which is really interesting, but it kind of makes sense because a lot of people are looking for particular pieces of music that they either want to hear, that they're practicing to learn, that they're maybe going to present as a or they're going to use in some way. And maybe they're a conductor who's like doing a bunch of research for their programming for the year. So it makes sense to me that a lot of the watch time, a lot of the viewership is coming from non-subscribers. Now, I look at this data and I say, it might be time for a subscriber push where you actually encourage your audience, your existing followers, hey, we've got this YouTube channel. There's a really easy way for you to support us. Head over to our YouTube channel, click subscribe. That really helps us out a lot because it builds our subscription base. It builds our audience on YouTube. If you frame it to your folks as like, this is helpful for us, they are going to be more excited about doing that. One of the other things when we're thinking about what your audience does, again, going back to overview here on the channel analytics page, one of the things that can be most sort of informational about your channel is the top content for the period. So keep in mind that the period defaults to the last 28 days. You can change this to any time frame that you want. But even for the last 28 days, the video on Consortium's channel that has gotten the most viewership and the most kind of duration viewed is a piece that was uploaded in 2010. I mention this because this is how building a YouTube channel can really roll for you. This video, uploaded in 2010, is still driving significant viewership and people coming to Consortium's YouTube channel. Now, how often are they turning away and running to something else? Who knows? But it is a touch point. It is an opportunity for you to get your music out there. And so there is definitely value in having and building an archive of music on a YouTube channel, because once you upload it once, even if you never talk about it again, as long as it's kind of pulling in some search traffic and some other kinds of things in the background, it can really kind of start rolling for you where, we didn't pay anything for any of these views, right? These are just things that are happening in the background in the last month. And so you think about how that can kind of lead to audience growth and this expansion of sort of a base of people who are aware of your organization. There's some real power there. The other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about, I know we're kind of running a little low on time here, and I'm happy to talk to anybody more in detail about YouTube if you want sort of a more in-depth primer or want me to take a look at your YouTube channel. I'm always happy to do that for folks. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you'd like that. But one of the things I want to emphasize is views versus watch time. So one of the things that YouTube has moved toward in the last, I would say 5 years or so, is preferencing something they call watch time. Watch time is kind of a confusing metric because it is done in hours. So for example, in the last 28 days, Consortium has seen people have come and watched 25 hours combined of Consortium's videos. In that same period, we're seeing 644 views. The thing that YouTube used to like was views. That was kind of the metric to go to. But because they weren't always clear on what counted as a view, sometimes you'd have an 1.5 hour long concert video that would get a view that lasted approximately 2 minutes. So views are helpful, but they are not the most helpful metric. More helpful is watch time. How long are people sticking around and watching your stuff? So that's definitely something to kind of keep in mind. If you've got great views on a piece, but then don't have great watch time. And I'm going to show you an example of this in a recently uploaded video that we did. Pop over here to analytics. So when you're in each video, you can also get over to analytics on the side here. You can look at retention. Somebody in the chat, I think Sara mentioned this already, but you can look at retention curves for your videos. So the average view duration was 3 minutes and 38 seconds, which is okay, except for when you look and you see that it's a 26-minute video. You see that the average percentage viewed is 14%. It's not uncommon to see a pretty steep decline here at the very beginning, but this one is well under what we would expect kind of across the channel and how things have done. So this makes me think, okay, well, what are we missing here? What's not happening? What is it that people click on it and they think, oh, this is great, and then they go away for some reason? So there are some things we can do. One of the things I did is I went and added each of the movement titles into the description section, so it creates these little chapters, so people can kind of jump around a little bit more if they want to. But using things like this to kind of help you think about what might we want to do differently next time, or how might we make an adjustment to our channel in a way that would be, that would be useful for us moving forward. So I know that was quick and dirty. So, there's a lot you can go into. I have gone down many a rabbit hole, but primarily focusing analytics, kind of overall channel analytics, going a little bit into your content and into your audience tabs, looking at things like views, looking at things like watch time, what your top content is. All of that can provide you some really helpful information about the growth of your channel as you continue to grow and develop. So I want to kind of leave it there. Are there questions that people have? I saw one from David here. Is there a website that provides a primer on copyright issues? I think that there was, not too long ago, I feel like Chorus America maybe put out a primer on that. I could be wrong. Does anybody else know? Because that would be great. I'm not positive on that, but I feel like they tackled that not too long ago. So that may be kind of the best place to look for that. But in general, copyright, I always suggest that people approach the publisher. And then if it's too much, you can either kind of negotiate with them a little bit, or you can just say, you know what, we're not going to do that piece. I always find it's better to ask permission than forgiveness in these kinds of situations. That said, it is up to everybody's risk aversion metric, how risk averse you feel. So that's another thing to kind of keep in mind. All right. I'm not sure what this is, but this is something that Wellspring will definitely be doing. I'm glad to hear that, Christina. And then let's see, when you say do a subscriber push, I often put a subscribe button at the end of our YouTube videos. Are there other low-hanging fruit ways of doing that? One of the most effective things that I ever did with a client was encourage them to email their email list and say, we know you love our ensemble. We know that sometimes, maybe you can't donate right now or whatever, right? Frame it however you want to. But one way that you can really help us out that will take literally 30 seconds of your time is to go to YouTube or go to our YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button. You will be shocked how many people will do that. Now, for folks who aren't Gmail users, Google users, it's a little bit more of a learning curve for those folks. But in general, for a lot of people, that's just a real easy thing. Just ask them. You could do a whole week-long campaign where you're doing something like that and release like, oh my gosh, we got 30 more subscribers today. Thank you, you're amazing. That kind of thing. Really ramping up energy around a drive to give your channel some more subscribers and support. Also being really clear when you release a live stream or you release something new, when you send out your marketing materials about that, make sure that you're saying, and also share this with other people, right? Make sure that you are making that next step of connection as well. So yes, that's a great question. Video titles and chapters when needed. Yes. Yeah. Video titles, man, it's a thing. As are the chapters. Those can both be really helpful things. You'll also find that you can sometimes tweak language a little bit or tweak some tags. So again, I'm happy to kind of go, and give people kind of individual guidance on this. I offer free 30-minute consultations all the time. So I'm happy to do that kind of thing. So if anybody here on the session today would like that, I'm certainly happy to talk about that, talk about StreamYard, talk about any number of other things that we've covered in this session or previously. Adam, I'm going to bring you back on here. Hey. I don't know what you're doing. Oh, there you are. You're having internet issues.
I'm mostly here now. I'm just a little bit delayed, so sorry about that.
Okay. No worries. No worries.
Computer issues on my end. Sorry about it.
Oh, dear. No worries. All right. Any other questions we can ask? I know we're kind of at time, so if there's any others, we'll stick around for another minute or two. But otherwise, I just wanted to mention again, for folks who are interested, we do offer group online consultation sessions. So we can talk about online presence. We can talk about video. We can talk about development of your YouTube channel. We really want these to be tailored to your individual group's needs. And so if you are interested in that, we already had one group from you all who's reached out and would love to have some other friends to hang out with. So not just talk to Adam and I. So if there are others as well who might want to jump into that, please reach out to us. Again, that's developlayllc.com/group-consultations. Other than that, okay, we've got another couple comments. Thanks. Great. Thank you for being here. It's way more fun to talk about this stuff when we have people that we're talking to. So thank you for being here. And yeah, we've had a great time. So we hope that all of you continue to do great things in Seattle. We're excited to see what you do in online spaces as the next few months and years develop. So, and don't hesitate to reach out if we can be of any help in the future. So I think that's it from us. Anything from you, Adam?
No, thanks again for being here. Sorry for our weird technical issues today, but thanks again for putting up with it. And yes, it's just lovely to get to know the folks in Seattle. We appreciate it very much.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. And yeah, happy Sunday to all. What Rochelle said. All right. Bye, everybody.
Take care.